Tom, I wanted to start with this story that comes from CUPE. So that's the Union of Public Employees in Hamilton, deciding it was important to weigh in on this whole situation between Israel and Hamas and just how, I'm going to say,
It's
just how wrong this is.
incomprehensible. Yeah.
It's one of those unbelievable events. Actually, it's a friend who sent me an article about what QP had published, and I said, "Well, no, this is obviously a hoax. There's no possible way that a trade union celebrated what Hamas was doing." I said, "That's not possible." And sure enough, they sent me not only the tweets but the newspaper article that confirmed it. Now, apparently, they've taken it down. Wow! So they finally realized that it was sort of wrong to support people who had just massacred 1,000 human beings. It's an unbelievable situation. And as you say, how can you get anything that wrong? And that's exactly where CUPE was, this Canadian Union of Public Employees, their Hamilton affiliate. So it's just an indication of how much work has to be done, Aaron and Natasha, because one of the things that I've heard a lot, this is a spiral. It's a cycle of violence, which sort of implies that, there's basically, that's a two sides thing, Well, no, sorry. This is a terrorist attack on innocent human beings that contains some of the worst horrors ever perpetrated ever. And no, we're not going to start saying that this is about a cycle and it's about two sides. This is about what Hamas did. And Israel has faced existential threats before and knows exactly what to do to deal with it. And that's probably what's going to happen now. And it comes to the point where everybody says, okay, there is a history of justice for the Palestinian people. And the answer is, you're right. But that's not what happened here. This wasn't about Hamas fighting for the Palestinian people. This was about Hamas trying to do what it's always promised to try to do, which is eliminate the state of Israel and cause exactly the destruction of the Hebrew state that was created exactly 75 years ago by the UN. By the way, just worth remembering that this isn't new. The day that Israel was recognized by the United Nations, of course, as we know, it was attacked on all sides by its neighbors, and I guess that was their first lesson in the fact that they were in a very tough neighborhood.
I wonder when people speak out like this, I wonder if there's just a fundamental lack of understanding. And then I wonder if I'm naive, if it's quite the opposite. They really do understand the situation, and that's the side of it they want to be on.
Well, that's the thing. When you have, it's almost difficult to repeat it, but when you have children being beheaded, how is it possible not to know what side you're on?
Yeah.
This is pretty fundamental moral question here. Mm-hmm. And does it mean that you don't have other things that have to be looked at here and go back through the history? No. There's a lot that has to be looked at here. And yes, and those are all things that have to be discussed. But make no mistake, this is just an indication of what Iran has always wanted to do, which is get rid of the state of Israel. They have these clients called Hamas, and they've been executing the will of their masters. And this is not like the Palestinian Authority or before it, the Palestinian Liberation Organization trying to get a settlement and trying to get things done differently. This is a completely different kettle of fish. It's a terrorist attack, abject, horrific butchery. I think that some of the best words simply came out of President Biden on this. We're not discussing this. We're steadfast. This is unshakable in our support for Israel, and I think that that's where anybody who looks at what just happened will stand.
Tom, what about reaction that we have heard? So I played part of the Biden speech today, which I thought was quite strong. Mm-hmm. I think Justin Trudeau was quite strong last night as well in his condemnation. Have you been surprised by this?
No. I think that Trudeau had a very good choice of words. I think that Poilievre was very strong as well. One of the things that was surprising was to see the Quint. So that's, of course, the United States, Great Britain, France, Germany, and Italy coming out. It wasn't a G7 declaration, so Canada notably was left out, as was Japan. So this is a further indication of the reduction of Canada's credibility on the world stage, that we weren't even invited to be part of that declaration. The Americans have already sent in the Gerald Ford with that full battle group. They're sending in apparently another one, the Eisenhower, I believe. And so they're not fooling around. They're saying anybody who tries to take advantage of this, Biden said, I have one word for you, don't. And he was talking to Iran and its other client in Lebanon, Hezbollah. Just don't even think about it. Don't think of starting up trouble on another frontier with Israel, and because otherwise there'll be such a heavy price to pay for it, you won't even believe it.
Can I just go back to this Quint thing? I saw all kinds of social media posts on this last night, so I just decided to go back and check. So the Quint, these countries now that are included, right, in this issue
Yes.
by the U.S. The
Right.
U.S., France, Germany, Italy, and the United Kingdom, all
Yes.
countries, right, which are members of NATO and the G7,
Yes.
but all countries that are considered nuclear weapon states.
Yes.
Germany, Italy are part of the nuclear weapons sharing program, which I guess we are not. Isn't that the reason we're not on this? I mean, why is this turning into such a big deal?
Well, Germany and Italy are not nuclear states. I don't know what the nuclear.
No,
weapons
they're part of the
sharing-
nuclear weapons sharing program. That's apparently what it says on Quint.
Well, let's just say that the United States decided to make a declaration. Look, Aaron, I was recently with a high-level American diplomat who simply looked at me and said, "Look, Canada is simply not considered a player anymore. You know, you've whittled down your military capacity to such a state you couldn't even put a small strength force in the field if push came to shove on the NATO front, let's say in one of the Baltic states. So this is where we've been left. You know, Trudeau's gotten some things right during his administration, but one of the biggest problems he's had is, look, what other evidence do you need other than the fact that the two most populous countries in the world, China and India right now, are barely even talking to us? It's not because we're good at this international stuff. It's because we're peewees. We're in short pants, and we're not being taken seriously. So it's not a question of the United States just saying, "Oh, these are the ones that we're in another group with." It's a question of saying we want this to be taken seriously, and adding Canada wouldn't have helped it been taken seriously because we can't do anything about anything.
That says it all, doesn't it?
All right.
I just before we run out of time, I'm curious what you make. So Aaron spoke to Melanie Joly yesterday, our Minister of Foreign Affairs, and she also spoke to Vashi Kapelis, and saying that they're there in Israel, they're accessible at the embassy, they were open all weekend, they were open yesterday, and yet we've heard from people that we've spoken to, Montrealers there, trying to get home safely, that has not at all been their reality. Evidently, some sort of announcement is coming this evening. I'm wondering, did wires get crossed? How does this happen that the minister has one message and yet the people that are living it it's something very different?
I'll start off by saying something positive about Melanie Joly, the person. She's smart and she's capable.
Agreed.
And she's hardworking.
Totally.
But there is such a confederation of nincompoops at Global Affairs. It's one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen in my public administrative and political career.
Really?
That place is becoming a joke. You remember at the height of the illegal Russian invasion of Ukraine, when Canada had formally said that Russia was guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity, we sent some senior people from Global Affairs to go have vodka on Russia Day at the Russian embassy in Ottawa. And when I questioned about that, I was told, well, you know, we've always got to be careful. We have this duty of care with our employees. We can't leave them in the lurch. So we've got to maintain good relations with everybody, including the country that you just accused of war crimes. That, for me, was all I needed to know about the state of affairs. And then when we went through the whole China thing, where, you know, they tried to bring in a few people from Global Affairs and a senior guy said, "Oh, no, there's no, you know, we sort of looked at it and there's really nothing to see." No, the Prime Minister of Canada told everybody that he had given what for to the president of China because he was interfering in Canadian elections. What went on? So it's not personal to Trudeau, but it is about his administration, because this is one of the key ministries that has to be run, and it takes nothing away from what I honestly believe is a very good work and intelligent work by Melanie Joly, but it also includes a government that seems to be incapable of controlling that department of its ministry. And I think that it's something that Trudeau should start paying a little bit of attention to, because he clearly doesn't.
Okay, and on that note, and I would tell you, you know, Tom, when we talked yesterday, when I spoke to her, and we were talking about getting Canadians out of Israel, and you know, the idea was, this is one of those cases where I think they moved too fast without having anything in place. They posted notices on the weekend, on Sunday, after what happened on Saturday in Israel, making it seem like we're on top of this. Everything is happening. We're staying open through Thanksgiving weekend. And at the end of the day, the people actually there were not. We heard that from callers on Eliza's show today.
No,
so,
but this is what we do in Global Affairs. We just announce stuff, and it's not checked out,
and don't follow through.
And this is the most egregious recent example, but it's certainly not the only one.